what is that failure of thinking? I mean, I don't know how would one fail to think, because even committing suicide is an act, is a thought. So is it really a failure, or because again, if you look at the semantics, this is a term we have created. What is failure? What is success? What should be thinking? What should not be thinking? But
Okay.
it's all thought. As long as you're alive and your mind is working, you're thinking. There are thoughts of all sorts. Even if it is, let's say, somebody thinks that he is in a vacuum and doesn't think anything, even that is a thought. Even the negation of a thought becomes a thought.
Right.
The only thing I am wondering now is that if a person who commits suicide to, let's say, get out of the game, be sure that he is getting out of the game or not is the other interesting thing. Nobody knows what is the game beyond that.
Yeah, but let's say we don't even go into that. What I'm saying is, if you just examine that moment, where you suddenly become aware of this, of the fact that you're playing a game that you don't even know why you're playing, which is, what Satya you suggested yesterday.
Yeah.
You become aware of this moment, and then what do? We just come back to that thought and stay with that thought, right?
Okay. If it was me, I would try to stop the game, because if I don't know why I'm doing it, the first thing which comes to mind, why am I doing it? I would rather stop it.
The question has to occur to you, why am I doing this?
Yeah. So what would occur to you when you, we don't even know, but we're speculating.
Yeah.
We don't have any way of knowing until we we are up against the same thought.
It's also the issue, like that awareness that we are playing a game which is beyond our control. Even that, how does it prevent one from, or how does it make one go out of it? Is the issue which I think you're trying to raise, which is interesting in itself. That what do we do even if we get aware that this is somebody else's game we are part of? What do we do? And that's.
But
sorry, yeah.
Is the game necessarily out of our control? I think that's a very interesting thing. I would think about if I were confronted with this situation. Realizing that I'm a part of the game, how can I control that game and manipulate it myself to make it mine?
I mean, we have lots of systems today itself, right? Like capitalism or, corporate America, whatever it is, where we are part of something, but because we are of a certain race or gender or whatever, we don't exactly have the same kind of control. We may not have any control. What do we do then?
But is that not also a decision as well? To say we don't have any control. Is it not kind of leaning back and not taking responsibility?
So you're saying even that is a choice?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
If we limit it to let's say things which are so to say within the life frame, then it becomes like you are aware, and then you're making a choice, and the choice in that case can be an action or can be no action, and the action could be something as simple as knowing more about it, or just talking about whatever it may be, or whatever way one wants to engage in. It can be an engagement or it can be just a turn away, but within the framework of life that is still possible. But I think the larger question is that beyond that, if life itself is a game that we are playing and it's a compulsive game because we don't know how to get out of it, then what do we do with this awareness if we believe that this is a game?
Right. I think that's something which a lot of us think about. Because that is really bigger than us. And it's the red pill and the blue pill situation.
But then,
right, it's exactly that kind of situation that if you could find the answer to this riddle, would you try?
Yeah.
Isn't the whole what the whole civilization is about, Prayas? That there is a constant sense, whether we call it development or whatever, and whether we take it in a completely different direction. But the whole idea that human, at least the human race, we can talk about others as well, is evolving towards discovering and unfolding and trying to reach out, figure out where is it, where does it end somewhere or does it not.
But that's not everybody who does it, right? Like it's a percentage of the population that does it, but others may not choose to do that.
Right, you're right, and that's the interesting thing, which probably happens because we feel we are so controlled by things, and because of that, probably that sense of compulsion that we feel about life, and that it belongs to somebody else who's controlling things. We even start accepting norms and givens. I mean, life is a given. No, you don't choose how to come alive. It's
Yeah.
a given, and that given, I think, leads to so many other givens being accepted by us, and the way the society then functions.
No, but let's say we don't try to close this question, right? So we're not trying to actually close this question quickly, right? So we just, if you just want to stay with this for some time, because it's a tricky question.
Yeah.
Because and it's also strangely linked to the topic of the day, which is almost a first for us. So what do we do with this? I mean, this moment. In this moment, Sam, what would you do?
Yeah. I mean, you guys continue. I'm just listening. Give me 2 minutes. I'm just wrapping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question was, what do we do with
When you know that you are part of the game and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. No. When you know that you are part of a game, that you know that you're playing in a compulsive way. So in a sense, you don't even know why you're playing it. Then what would you do with that? Yeah.
Another question that comes to me: what are you in that game? I mean, that's also interesting. Whether you are something being moved, or you have the power to move yourself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
And we had a discussion about power some time ago, and we thought that in different frameworks, in different circumstances, some people move and others get moved. Whereas if you shift the frames again, those same people who were the movers are now becoming the moved.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the sense, power being a construct that's a spiral, which is like an optical illusion, like it doesn't stop when it seems to stop. But like you were saying, Parvez, that thinking of playing a game which you're playing compulsively, the dangerous part of the thought is what you're actually hearing for the first time is that there might not be any free will.
Right.
Okay, but let me ask. Sorry, please go ahead.
Please continue. I was just
No, I was just trying to think. Is there pain while you're playing the game? Are there any feelings? Do you feel anything?
Are you playing the game?
I think so.
So if you're playing the game, you already know.
No, I think it's the metric to define whether this game is being compulsively or not. So if you feel that you are being forced and if you don't get the result you want, then I think it's a compulsive game. Otherwise, you are voluntarily doing it. You are willingly doing it. So your perception about the game defines how well you're going to enjoy the game. So actually, if you're enjoying the game, then it's not compulsive.
Yeah, if there's any emotion which you remember. So compulsion is like a blackout, right?
Correct.
So it's a feeling that you want to go into a room, and then when you enter that room, you don't remember anything, right? So your free will disappears.
Right.
But you might have a compulsion to enjoy what you're doing.
This entire talk of the game reminds me yesterday thinking Brazilian players thinking what were they doing again.
So you're saying that was a compulsive game. Like they didn't really want to enter that game because Neymar was out and the captain was out.
You don't have a choice, no? And you cannot cry over Myanmar or anybody. Life is always a challenge, and
It's
they
a
failed
good
through that
example.
challenge.
The difference being that you have a limited time framework which is already imposed. I think
So at least they knew the game
about the game we're talking about.
So David, what do you think about this question?
Well, I'm just interested in the aspect of compulsion and how can you turn it around. I think knowledge will immediately imply some sort of agency. So once you're aware of it, you're an actor who can choose to act or not to act, but who's not passive in it anymore, right? Which changes your whole outlook, and which, well, according perhaps to my beliefs, I guess, brings full responsibility for the game back to yourself.
But how would you know if you are like you are controlling the game or you are being controlled? How would you know?
Yeah, in a compulsion, you don't really have a choice, right? So when you are being compulsive, you don't have a choice enough to want to be able to stop.
Right.
I have a slight clarification here to ask. Are we talking about compulsion? I mean, firstly, is this question in itself right, that there is a compulsion to play the game? And secondly, are we referring to living life the way we are living as the game, or of being born as a game? Because the two would then probably lead us to different.
Right. I think it depends on the boundary. So if we are talking about the real world, and some people choose to play the game, and some, let's say yogis. Okay, let's say yogis. They don't want to participate in the game, so they seclude themselves away from the real world, and then they live in their own space, right? So the bound. Then it's a matter of choice, and it depends on the boundary. But you're right. We are talking about two different things when we say compulsion and compulsive.
Yeah. I mean, compulsion is if we consider being born in life or in the world, then that straight away goes beyond, and the only way to get out of the game comes. I come back to that is death or suicide. That I want to stop and I do that and use that as an agency. Okay, here I am, whoever you are, I'm out of. But then, because I don't know how to go beyond that. And otherwise, if we're talking about being fitted in the society or the world, and the games that go on challenging, then, and also the whole idea, like with connecting with today's topic about this whole notion of meaning, then straight away goes to that theory of absurdism, trying to always find meaning and seeking and believing that there is enough universal truth, and continuously chasing what to say, continuously chasing an ephemeral or a nebulous notion of creating meanings and thinking that we are getting beyond, and learning more and more. While at the same time, if we bring it down to a narrower frame, I sometimes feel that with whatever we are doing, the so-called development in terms of thought or whatever, we are probably dissociating more and more from what is there to the world and to the meaning of life, perhaps.
I just wanted to raise something which I read today very coincidentally. It is something that Albert Einstein said, that we cannot know the meaning of life because we did not create it. I just want to throw this there.
Right. I mean, that's exactly where
sorry. So if that's the case, when you give birth to a child, you created that life, right? And then does that mean you understand the meaning of the child's life?
But you didn't create that life. I mean, you don't know where it came from, right? I mean, I guess it's more at a metaphysical level that creation of life. That's how I read it.
Good.
But you're right. I mean, that's something to think about too. Like if you give birth, you did sort of create something that's out of your hand.
But it's not really that we are creating life.
Yeah.
It is we are becoming a medium.
Yeah.
That creation. Are we creating?
No, but in a popular way, in a generally acceptable common way,
Yeah.
children are created at the moment of birth. So
At the moment of birth or at the moment of
conception.
Actually, the moment of the glint in the eye, right?
I think till it's in conception, till it's inside the mother, there's still an idea that the child is a notion, and when the child becomes a body, so when the child is born, it confirms its presence. So it validates the rumors.
But hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Finally, I'm able to talk.
Right.
I was wanting to.
You still sound like an unborn child, though.
Okay, I just wanted to know if the child, while it's inside the mother, does it have a sense of awareness?
So sorry. What did you say? Can you please repeat it?
If the child inside the mother has awareness.
Who has awareness? The mother.
The baby.
The child when it's
The
inside
fetus.
the mother.
Until the fetus.
I think. Yeah, Pavesh, go on.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. I think children are the most aware human living organisms on earth, and then we don't understand their language. When they cry, we are like, what the fuck? Tell me what you want, right? And then so these children are this child then dumps down to our level, and then they try to communicate in a way that we want them to communicate. So at that point in time, they're coming down from their awareness to our level.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very wonderful thought.
Yeah, it's like they are not limited. Like we are limited by our cultures and our languages and our socializations.
I mean, have you ever tried, try this experiment. It's really bad, but then you should try it. So, to a child, you say, your words should say come.
Yeah, because
The gesture should
makes sense
show.
right now, but
I'm sorry,
yeah,
what is that? Okay, so to a child, right, just say come, but then you do a gesture that means go away, and then figure out what this child does. It's a very interesting thing
That's
to watch.
interesting. Yeah.
actually, I did a similar thing. Like for my younger brother, he's my cousin. When he was small, what we used to do is like we used to have these plastic rings, and since he's like a child, like 3 years old or 4 years old, like he got like a new golden ring for his birthday, and then we were like, yours is just golden, ours is plastic, so we just whatever added this hype to the plastic, and then he's like, no, I don't want this gold ring, I want the plastic ring. So it's interesting to see how they just whatever easily whatever, they don't go with the words, they just go with the gestures and expressions.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Sam, did you manage to record the stream?
This stream, no boss. I don't have speakers with me.
I have a recording going actually.
Oh, okay.
So are you able to record both sides of the conversation?
I believe so. Whatever is coming out of my speaker, I think is going into the.
That's wonderful. Because we are stuck off air today.
Yeah.
There is no start broadcast button for me, so it's great that you have a recording going. I'll talk to you later how to get it from you.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just continue. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, so Sam, do you want to just stitch together that conversation that we are having?
Yeah. So I was gonna say that almost all the time the child goes by what it sees and what it perceives. Okay, so it could be the emotion in your voice, like what she was saying. Oh, I got plastic, it's more valuable. And then, so it perceives these two things. And so building up on that, what Shortcuttable was saying, 2 days ago, that we should talk about how does this enlightened person's thought smells. I think we should be talking about what the enlightened person can see, which is what we were trying to convince him to talk about, right? But then he was like, no, why are we talking about vision? And I mean, at that point, I didn't have this thought process where, like almost everything that the child sees or whatever we see, we perceive more through vision. So we should talk about what we see and what we don't see.
Can I add something?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
sure. Please add.
Okay.
Please add it.
Yeah, please continue. Yeah. Are you just able to speak? We'll figure out if we can hear you.
So right now when I'm talking, there is like a huge data of my concept of self, and probably that's where I'm acting out of. But the child is just, there is no big data which is in his mind about what he is and what he believes and all that. So he's free of all these biases and inhibitions. So his awareness is greater. He has a broader sort of vision.
Or maybe can we say that the child doesn't have any prejudices, or he doesn't have a perspective? Can we say that?
Also, I think, can I add here that it's not so much about awareness, but
Yeah.
or what are we talking about? With the knowledge, if we define and we have a certain meaning for that, so probably we believe, and that's where the whole idea that a child is inferior comes to us, that we have more knowledge. But awareness-wise, I think as we grow up, our senses start to dull, and we start training them to get tuned in a certain way, and therefore, and that's where I personally believe and perceive that the adult is a more spurious version of a human being, and therefore probably the sensibilities also go down. Whereas in a child, the awareness is probably sharper than that, because it's not adultery.
No, but I mean, irrespective of the difference in the experience of the child and of the adult,
Right.
I'm saying if you go back to the compulsion, which you were wondering if that's the right question, since it is the right word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about the term of compulsion as well.
Yeah.
Because the compulsion necessarily implies that we have a known alternative framework within which we can operate, right? But if we only have game and we don't know anything else is unknown, does that really qualify as an alternative? And does that therefore mean that we are in that game out of compulsion, or are we just there because of ignorance of alternatives?
So you are saying whether ignorance and compulsion are different.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, I would still hold on to compulsion as a different word from ignorance, because
No, I don't think he meant that. He said compulsion. We arrive at compulsion because of ignorance.
Yeah.
No, I'm just questioning the validity of the term compulsion over here. To put it more simply is, if we use compulsion, it means that we're doing something despite knowing of an alternative.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
But
true.
in this game we're talking about, do we have certainty about any alternative? Or is that just the known world, which is the game, and then nothingness, which we don't know anything about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because that's what I had been dwelling upon, that this whole notion of compulsion, whether that itself is the right question or not.
No, but compulsion is something that we know the existence of, regardless of whether we can arrive at the meaning of the word or not, right? So we observe and experience compulsion regularly, right?
So it's like we are compelled to drink because I'm an addict. I know, I'm aware that this is a problem, but I'm compelled to drink. But the other thing which I think David was saying was, to play the game, I don't know I'm not aware of what the options are. I don't know what it is
Yeah.
like to be without it.
But I think you are aware of what the options are.
Which the only option I know is of dying or cryogenic freezing or something like that.
But like an alcoholic does have an option of maybe going to a rehab.
Right, no. Alcoholism is one thing, but living life is another thing.
I think at any given point of time, we are aware of certain possibilities.
Your voice is, I don't know, it's there's a lot of noise. Please try again.
Hello, can you hear me?
This noise. It's okay.
Hmm.
You can type.
You can type, yeah.
Okay.
I think again, giving the reference from yesterday's game, I think it's interesting what David and Pervez are thinking about. I think in the game you also had the referee.
Sorry, what did you say? That you also have a
Referee.
referee?
Yeah. So that role is also interesting in a way to look at, because he is also part of the game. He is also maybe playing company.
But not all games have a referee.
I mean, who's the referee for the game of life, right?
No, all games do go by a reference of a rule in a way. So how do you twist that rule, or how do you do that role of referee in a way? You get?
But is there really a rule? That's the other question. Or
Yeah.
are we just imagining those rules and making up those rules ourselves? And
Right,
imagining
right.
that we be a referee who is distributing things, who's controlling the game, and shedding responsibility by imagining this person we project.
David, it is very interesting what you are bringing it to. I think there is in the game itself, the game when we are playing, what we are calling, is actually the game not with anybody else. It's between the referee and us.
So the game itself is the referee.
In the sense where
This brings me to the point that, does the game really exist, or we are thinking that it is a game?
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
now the questions that come into play are even more interesting. That one is whether there is a game at all. Two, whether if there is a game, are there any rules, or it is just a self-indulgent game?
Yeah, I would say that the rule set is a referee.
Yeah, but
No, I don't think so. So what's the role of a referee in a game? He wants to ensure that all the players play the game properly, right? And then he wants to keep the game on.
So,
That's what the rules do.
so exactly, playing properly is rules.
Now, if that's the case, then you think of governments. These guys do the same thing, right?
Yeah, but
Or ideologies.
So the rule set is what is governing the game, and whoever is enforcing the rule set is the referee. So in this case, it is culture which could be the referee. It could be our own mind which could be the referee. Our value
Absolutely.
systems.
even beyond, I mean, is it a self-indulgent game? Because it's possible that we are just imagining a game, and this is a indulgent exercise of feeling that there is a game, and at times we're feeling compelled to play it or not, and is there
Yeah.
a referee or not, so we can fight against, or are we constantly challenging ourselves with assumptions and meanings that we try to create?
But that again is a game. I think Parvez is pushing in the interesting direction that I think it can be a self-indulgent game. It can be.
I would still hold on to the word compulsion. Sorry.
You are compelled to hold on to that. That
I will
itself is compulsion.
it's a compulsion.
You are playing the referee, huh?
I'm just saying we experience and know compulsion on a regular basis, right? There's so many things that each of us does that we don't know why we do them.
I think, Prayas, when you're asking this question now, you're bringing it into the realm of the little things or the way we act, and then it comes into the domain of society. Then it's a different game we're talking about. So again, I'm reminding that I think we seem to be jumping this border between the unknown so-called game with which we are born, or this game which is happening within the society during our lifetime, the little things.
Right. I'm referring to the experience before experience becomes labeled and clinically assessed, right? So I'm not talking of the compulsion of the clinical diagnosis. I'm talking of the compulsion of experience.
Can you further elaborate on that?
So what psychiatric thought calls compulsion in the clinical diagnosis, and what people actually experience as compulsiveness are two different things, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and that is not fiction that people experience compulsions. It might be fiction that making it a clinical disease might be wrong.
Yes. No, I completely agree on that. So I'm not even referring to the psychiatry bit. That's all questionable, and you very rightly put it that compulsion or being compelled to do certain things in life is one thing, and another might be fiction, which is true. So I am referring to this one, the one in life, right? And if we're talking about the compulsions that we experience in our life as we live along, as we go along, then then I think that becomes a completely different question. Then it comes into literally almost the physical realm of things which we feel and sense, and through our senses, and then react to it and feel compelled by it. So previously, I think we were dwelling on the other side of the border and going into the ephemeral and all.
Right, because I think when Satya brought it in, that Einstein said that you can know only what you create. I mean, I'm saying that it was definitely on the in a different direction, but if you look at what creation is, and it is a kind of compulsion, then it was not so different, maybe, right? So if you know what you create, which means that you only know what you're feeling compelled by, right? And then we have the same question.
No, sorry. You were saying that if we create, then we know why we are being compelled. I couldn't get it. Sorry.
I mean, if you know only what you create,
Yeah.
so and to be creative is to be compulsive, then if you know only what you're compulsive about.
No.
But do you even know still what you created? See, I may be compelled to create a painting, but how it came to be, I don't know. I really don't know all of it.
So that's exactly like our initial question. That so we are playing a game which we don't know anything about, right? So you make a song, you make a concept, and you don't know what this thing is, but you allow yourself to do it.
Right.
So it's like playing a game that you feel that you're playing compulsively. It's the same thing.
You're
So
just
if
doing
you
it
are-
because you're compelled to do it.
Yeah, so if you allow yourself to be creative every day, you are doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So, Parvez, you're not sure if being creative is a game.
Uh, no, I mean, sorry, I wrote that in response to Vishnu, what he wrote, what we were talking about lifestyle. But here, again, I am one. If are we pushing ourselves to create something, or are we being pushed to create something? Like the example which Shweta gave for a painting. You know?
It's
And
both, right?
sorry.
I'm sorry. It could be both, or
And
either.
I think it's interesting what Parvez is putting up. I think, Parvez, I am more inclined that we are pushed to do something.
yeah, otherwise it would be so simple to fabricate creation, right? So,
No, but you just said that we could take up a practice of producing something every day.
Yeah, but that again, you have a push from somewhere to do it.
So you're saying there is a compulsion to create.
Yeah, I think there is a push somewhere
Yeah, okay.
which always
Yeah.
exists, which makes us do things.
I mean, it
yeah, I
might.
would agree with that
Yeah.
because I mean, I don't see any high point of being an artist, and I don't know why would someone consciously do this if it were not to be a compulsion.
Everyone creates, or is it limited to just creative people?
Shweta, everyone creates. Everyone
Yeah,
creates.
some people create bullshit. That's it.
And others create havoc.
See, if
Yeah, but if you don't go into the qualitative analysis of it, right? We're just talking about are you creating now? After that, you don't care about what you're creating is good or not, right? So that's your problem. That's your business.
I mean, some people are compelled to create for some reasons. Like some may be compelled to create because they want to show off to their friends or something. Even that's a compulsion.
Yeah.
But an artist, in the sense, someone who's doing creation in a formal way and almost on a day-to-day basis, an artist won't survive the showing off business, right? So, I mean, how many years can you show off for? You can show off for 1 year, you can show off for 2 years, but then you have to get down to business, right? You have to stop showing off at some point.
Or do
But
something
what if the
else.
compulsion is so strong that you can do it for years?
Can I take it to another example on this? The whole idea of creation. I think one of the sentences in between was that everybody creates, which is true, and then the word artist itself becomes meaningless for me, and I often question that whole word. Who's an artist and why? That's just a label. It's like so and so is a doctor, so and so is an engineer. These are labels. So if we get out,
no, but it's not a label like a doctor or an engineer, because the minimum qualification is not generally accepted, right? So even going to an art school, like doing your MBBS, is not going to make you an artist by default.
Or not having a degree does not say that you're not an artist.
Exactly.
But that unfortunately does not apply to the others, which are more constructed institutions. But I challenge even that. I mean, why can't another person be a doctor if somebody wants to? So
I will.
Yeah.
And
I think what Parvez is saying is interesting. Let him finish. I think it's interesting what he's saying. These are just labels, so we have to look beyond. So Parvez, can you continue?
yeah, so my main point is that I was just thinking, why does a bird create a nest? And or any primitive thing, or a bacteria, let's say, why does a bacteria exist in a colony? Why do they start creating a colony? That's all creation, and which is created by them. It's not a creation from beyond. What is that push? Is that creativity? Is that something, or is that necessity of life?
Yeah.
From where
Yeah.
it probably originates, the whole idea of creating. And
Yeah. I mean, for me, everything boils down to. I'm sorry, everything boils down to survival again, doesn't it? I mean, the bacteria is doing it because it has to survive. It's the compulsion of life to carry itself on.
Survival and procreation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I was like, thanks for bringing compulsion back. So I was saying that if you look at creation in in the same way as we looked at compulsion. So in the sense that the experience of creation is true, it's not debatable. Uh, the clinical diagnosis of creation might not be an agreement, might be a myth, right?
Yeah.
So if we do that, then we know that we have a very basic narrative of creativity, which is beyond the labels. So we know that there is some notion of an artist, which the label of it can't even touch.
Precisely.
So if we go to that notion of the artist, then what do we have? So then can we read the earlier reference with creation in a different way?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where I was trying to come to, that creation was the necessity of survival for all beings, whatever they were creating, be it digging holes by the rats or moles, or building up of a honeycomb by the bees, or whatever. And man took it to different levels and kept believing that he can do so much more, and then got twisted somewhere along the lines of development, or whatever that word means. And therefore the question whether it's a push, or is it it is that we push that creation.
Is it a performance or is it an accident?
Exactly. So I think it's not, the accident was being born, and then the performance began because one needed to survive.
Right.
And that's where also becomes the origin of playing the game, if we come to that again.
Creation and playing a game being so similar. Right. Please continue.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was saying.
Satya, you were saying something.
I was just going to say the word survival. I mean, surviving while playing the game is one thing, but survival of life is another thing. You see, there's a different compulsion in the two of them.
How would that be?
So, surviving as being part of a game of society or whatever, that's one thing. Whereas the compulsion of life to perpetuate itself is a different survival.
Right.
But are they really that different, those two different games?
They're not. You're right. They're not.
One is merely a subset of another.
Agreed. Yeah.
That's like the different societal subsets, which are all subsets of that life game.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe it's interesting to put like this, that performance is a subset of accident.
Yeah. I didn't ask to be born. I am here now. What am I going to do with my time? So I got to perform.
So let's create.
So I performed to survive the accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that I may be able to die a good death. If, once I've already been hit by a car, let me perform the trauma of an accident victim.
Wow. That makes everything look so
dramatic.
So little.
I think the performance happens much before that, and then so there are two kinds of performances. One which we think, I mean, I'm just thinking aloud. One, I think, which we think we are giving meaning to, and therefore it becomes a performance without us thinking it's a performance, and we are finding meaning of it. And the other is this accident which you just talked about, a car hitting, and then the performance of life takes over. Just try to survive out of that.
Right, so then we can very simply ask the question that if at any moment we are only encountering these two kinds of performance, is it fair to seek a meaning in this performance? And so is the question, what does it mean? Is that even fair?
I think
meaning.
Right, David, you're saying something.
Yeah, I would see meaning much rather as the rules. As the rules you create for the game.
Right.
Or maybe I'll take meaning as the goal and not the rules. That's what you try to achieve, right? You try to find meaning in everything.
I think rules come out of the meaning.
Yeah, you're right. The moment we try to create meanings, we are looking for rules and dimensions to fix that meaning within.
Yeah.
Not communicate it.
So I think meaning is what is interesting is it can be, I don't know, it is both the rule and the medium put together in a way. Because you find one meaning and then you again start finding some other meaning.
Yeah, then goal also makes sense, right?
Goal and meaning are the same, no?
Yeah.
I mean, goal is an eventual entity. So it's almost like a final meaning.
You start playing the game again, right?
No.
Right.
You score one goal.
Basic goal.
Yeah. Yeah,
No, I
it
think
goes on.
there can be multiple goals, right? I'm not talking
Right,
about the ultimate.
Yeah.
Right. So coming to the time of this broadcast when we have to search for a way to quickly find something to and conclude with, so that we have some thread to that goes on tomorrow. At this point, we are I think we have opened many threads, but not managed to close them.
Yeah.
So we have the game, which is still open. We have compulsion, that's open. We have meaning that's open.
Yeah.
Right.
What else do we have?
Performance.
Performance is open.
Accident.
Creation.
Creation is open, right? So we have all these things that are open, and I think the best we can do is just make this laundry list and just have the list tomorrow.
Perhaps try to put all these things together. So, like you said, creation is the accident, and then we start performing, trying to find trying to find the meaning of the game.
Of the compulsive game. You compulsively try to find the meaning of this game.
Oh, that's interesting. We try to find the meaning of the accident.
Yeah.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, the meaning in the compulsive game is a temporary meaning. It's not like infinity. It's not like having access to the impossible, right? So it's not something like that. So I think it's tangible.
It reminds me of a small incident. Can I narrate it quickly?
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Many years ago, I met Elidia Guevara, who's the daughter of Che Guevara, and I was interviewing her. And
Wow.
yeah, so I asked her a question at the end of the interview. The last question was, I said, how does it feel to be the daughter of the famous Che? And I was very excited. This was 6, 7, or maybe 10 years ago. And she smiled and she said, well, it was just a genetic accident. It could have happened to anybody. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
which is like the meaning of the accident. It's but then again, we can't really look at the genetic accident as a compulsive game, like, right? So
But apart from genetic accident, I think most of the time we also land up asking ourselves that why was I born like this? And that's a big question always asking about the accident.
But compulsion has nothing to do with birth, the idea of birth, right? So,
well, can I just perhaps share a little thought with you? I just got there for the past 5 minutes, which I don't know whether we really talked about that yesterday, but if I'm not mistaken, you were talking about continuity yesterday.
Right.
We're supposed to, and I feel that continuity is very, very much the missing link between many of the things we're talking about. Because what is compulsion? Compulsion is an attempt to create continuity, right? Yes. Compulsion cannot exist without a past, without a certain repetition or reference to some past event. The same goes for meaning of that game. It also only works with continuity, even if you use disruption as a force of continuity, that would work as well. So I think it would be very interesting to discuss all those kind of chapters we've opened up with regards to continuity and how the notion of time or the notion of continuity affects them.
Yeah.
And continuity didn't take us anywhere at all yesterday, right? So we got talking about this game that we are playing, and I mean, we had the game, we had the compulsive game even yesterday, right? So we haven't managed to make anything of it, but we didn't go anywhere with the continuity yesterday.
Well, what I'm saying, like continuity as an idea is like perhaps not the most underlying of all our compulsions. The kind of stone at base of everything is the need to create continuity.
So it's like the narrative, like we all have narratives, and we act based on that narrative. They compel us.
Yeah, even our performance is the need to extend something into the future, to make that bridge between past and future, to create that kind of continuity. Like all kind of creation is to project into the future, to continue.
Right.
But that is that continuity, is that creation of that continuity, is that fiction or is that absolute?
Well, I think it is fiction which you try to render reality, right? You possess it in a fictional state and project it upon the void of the future, trying to make it become something real, perhaps.
I think that's also the sense of knowledge. I mean, you cannot have just a moment. It has to be a continuity. Otherwise, even a thought cannot exist unless it is continuity.
Absolutely. That's for example why I was thinking when we're talking about the example of children or small children. I was wondering, can you even claim that they're part of that game? Because I'm not sure whether there's this sense of continuity of space, of past and future, which is very much essential to even be part of that game. Because if everything is just an isolated incident, it doesn't have, it's not connected to a narrative.
That's very interesting, David, because it just reminded me Milan Kundera's that book where he differentiates between human and animal time and says animal time is a cyclic time. Every day they get up and believe that it's a new day, and they start the entire day with the same ritual, same exercise, and everything. And maybe we always imagine it as a continuous linear time.
But how do we know what their time is like?
We don't.
Yeah.
I think even the cyclical might be an imposition of ourselves. What if there were like timelessness? Can we actually fathom that? Can we imagine that?
Yeah, I think what you were giving example of a child, I think it's interesting because we cannot imagine how do they see a day or even their life in a way. That's a timelessness in a way what you are describing.
No, but I mean, I understand David to be saying that making continuity is a kind of compulsion that that is that if we wouldn't have, we would actually stop playing the game, because if you don't make sense of the moment connected to the next moment and becoming time, if you don't make sense of it, you would just try to exit time, which is dead, right? So
Exactly.
you wouldn't play the game if you didn't try to make meaning of it, which is compulsive.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially those of us who are scattered in our professions or in our art or whatever. We're like desperately trying to make sense of what am I doing with my time. It's kind of resonating with me.
Right, and it's a good place to stop because we have something for tomorrow and we can go on.
Yeah.
So one second, last question. So I always think, what am I?
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I always think, what am I doing with my life, not time.
Both,
So
I mean.
is time equivalent to life?
Yes.
Well, life won't
It's
exist.
part of, or I think time is one parameter in which we measure life. One
Yeah.
of the parameters.
Yeah, but if your time is over, you die.
Right. I think it's like a multiple, like factor. Right?
Different people see time differently. For them, it's like 5 months or 10 years, but for others, it is like, what am I doing with my current state of life?
But it's still always thought of as a continuum.
Agreed, yeah.
Yes.
It's always thought of as like a past reference which you carry into the future. Like the lapse of it, like how it progresses could be felt slower or faster. But it still has these two kind of vector directions. One is going back and one is going forward.
Yeah, and that's life. So, I think, Sam, for the purpose of this question, I think time and life is the same thing.
Yeah.
Time and life is the same thing. That is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I think life is a function of time. I won't say they are the same things.
Yeah. So
That was I said. Yeah, life can be a function.
when you feel compelled to create continuity out of experience in time, you create your life.
You create your story, your
You
narrative.
Your narrative.
And that narrative is life, right? So
Yeah.
That narrative is the meaning. That is the meaning.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, at the end of my time, will I have something to show for it? Is a preoccupation with many. What's the story of my life?
So we really don't know what life is then.
We also don't know what time is.
Okay, so that's okay. So that's something for us to do tomorrow, and it's okay to have stretched 16 minutes beyond our time today, but we can just stop here and meet again tomorrow at 9 p.m. Indian time. And thanks everyone for being here.
Alright, thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
The time like that.